Hello and welcome to Mystery Monday. I'm Zara Altair, and this is our live chat about writing mysteries, where we focus on what it takes to write a good mystery that keeps readers engaged. And today I want to talk about unpacking the characters in your story. So, the main job of all the supporting characters in your mystery is to provide conflict for the detective. Conflict is what builds story, and the characters are the way to provide conflict for your detective. So you want to keep that in mind when you're developing your characters, because their role in the story is to confound and confuse and lie and frustrate your protagonist, the detective. And they enhance the story concept and color how your story is revealed. And that's what keeps your readers engaged in your story. So, one of the best tools you can have to work with all your supporting characters, as well as your protagonist, the detective, is to create a story Bible. And what that means is one place where you keep the details of each and every character in your story. So it depends on your style. Some writers have a big 3-ring binder and pages and pages and pages with a divider for each character. So that's the old style, which many people still use. And then there are many story writing software tools that allow you to develop character elements for the story as well. And some writers keep all their characters in Word documents, or in something like Pages or Google Docs on Google Drive. So it's up to you which tool you find the most useful. I know a lot of people, when they're brainstorming ideas, really like handwriting and that connection that happens in your brain when you're actually physically writing. So it depends on you. I know for me, I make a lot of handwritten notes, and then when I put my story Bible together, now this is just me, so keep it in mind. Then I start that story online in the writing tool that I use, which is StoryShop. But you have many choices. But the whole idea is to have all the details for your characters in one place, so you never get lost while you're writing. And as ideas come to you while you're writing, you may want to add to that character Bible. This is especially important if you're writing a series and some characters are going to reappear in your stories. So your detective may have a sidekick, and you're going to want to do a lot of work on that sidekick or partner to help them bounce off the detective in your stories. So it's kind of like creating your own reference book, only in this case it's your characters for your story, so you can always look up anything that you want to know about a particular character. This can happen with minor characters who appear in one place and then may not appear again for 100 pages. And you can go back and look at that character again to reintroduce them in your story and to your readers. So, what do you need to know about your characters? All right. The most important aspect of your character is how they move the story. I'm going to say that again. The most important aspect of your character is how they move the story. Writer director calls it the context. So you want to have your character in the context of the story and building the context of the story and reacting to the story. So you know what each character's conflict is. And for mystery writers, the context is how the character impacts the detective's attempt to solve the mystery. It's that simple. All right. So details like height, hair color, how they carry themselves are icing on the cake, because the really important factor is how they are impacting the story. Readers like the details, so they can heighten those details, heighten the presence of the character and make them real for your readers. But if you change your character's hair color, for example, it won't impact or influence how they interact with the detective. So it's really important. You need to know each character's intention. What is their personal intention in the story? Just for a minute, put aside the detective. But you really want to get into that character and figure out how they operate and how they work in the world and how they interact with the other characters in the story. That's why the secrets and the lies those suspects have, we talked about those in episode 3 of Mystery Monday, and they're really important. So you may want to go back and listen to that again. They are important in your mystery. The lies lead your detective on a path that may keep them away from solving their puzzle. Okay, that's conflict. So your detective's character, your detective's discovery path gets diverted by what your supporting characters tell him in their lives. The more frustrating and the more problems these characters create and throw at your detective, he'll move in more difficult time solving the puzzle. And so will your readers. So you're reaching, So, because your readers are going along with your detective on the path to solving the puzzle. Hold on, I have a comment. Okay, Robert Crawford, hi, thanks for being here. Great comment. Robert says, another question the author must ask is, what is my main character risking? That is for sure, Robert, that's for sure. Today we're kind of focusing on the supporting characters and how they impact that main character. So, just as each scene moves the story forward, each character must impact the detective in her search to discover the murderer. Once you know the character's role in the story, then you can start building up their background, their physical details, their secrets, their lies, their wound, the backstory about the wound, which you may or may not actually put in the story, but you'll need to know it, and their relationship to other characters and how they interact with those other characters, their likes and dislikes. So, and then I want to talk a little bit about the hierarchy of your supporting characters. Not every character has equal importance in your mystery, and I think that's really important for beginning writers, is that you're going to have a hierarchy of the importance of the various characters in your story. So you're going to spend more time on the background of the main supporting characters. So if your detective has a sidekick or partner, you'll need to know a lot about them because they're going to be interacting on a regular basis. Of course, all the main suspects, and limit these to around 5, 8 at the absolute most. You don't want to confuse your readers and get them lost. Um, and then if you have this in your story, the detective's personal opponent. This is different than the antagonist, the perpetrator of the murder. This is someone who, for whatever their personal reasons, is trying to thwart your detective, uh, either on the actual solving of this particular murder or for other reasons, but um, they've got a bone to pick and they do it, and so you're going to want to know a lot about that and how they impact your character and how they throw a monkey wrench in your detective's plans. And of course, you want to know a lot about the perpetrator. And I know I've mentioned this before, you want to know a lot about your victim because the reason that your victim was killed is a main motivator for the perpetrator. Okay, so limit your time with minor characters who appear once or twice or 3 times. They kind of come on stage and then they leave. And so a simple trick is to give them an identifying characteristic like a limp, a rasping voice, extra rosy cheeks, so the readers quickly remember them from when they appeared pages and pages and pages and chapters ago. They've got that one little quick cue to bring that character back into their mind. And this is the one time when physical details work as a memory aid for readers. So then just a few last words. Shakespeare said it, the play is the thing, and that's so true. When you're creating your mystery, the story is the context of everything else. And so your supporting characters are the means that you have to reveal your story. When you decide each character's place in the context of the story and build their story on that importance, you'll create characters that influence the story and keep readers engaged. And that's what we all want as writers, is to keep our readers reading. So anyway, that's it. Unpack your supporting characters. And of course, you can always ask me questions. So get in touch to ask your questions. And then I have a couple of Ask Me Anything questions for today. Let's see. I want to write a mystery. I read them all the time and think I could write my own. Okay, good. I'm wondering if I should have a male or a female detective. I've read that female leads sell well. Ah, okay. That's a good question. So, deciding to write a book on what sells is called writing to market. And it can be lucrative, especially if you know the genre well. And you've mentioned that you've read a lot of mysteries and you do know the genre. And it's really a personal decision about whether it's a male or a female. Other than that, over and above that, you as a writer uh, need to create a character that you love. I don't know how else to say it. You need to create your protagonist as someone that you really like writing about and you want to delve into their personality and how they work and how they solve problems and how they solve the puzzle of the murder. Um, so your comfort level in creating a character as male or female is going to have a lot to do with that. If you decide that you want to write to market and you're hesitant about creating a female detective, then you're going to struggle all the way through. So you want to take that into consideration. If, you know, the detective that pops into your head is a woman, cool. That's great. You have that emotional link, and you need that emotional link to keep writing. Writing a novel is a big and long process, and you want to have the absolute best connection with your protagonist as possible. So thank you for asking that question. That's a good question, because some people set out to write to market and that's it. That's all they care about. And it can be challenging. You've eliminated one of the main challenges, which is not knowing the genre. Some people will want to write to market for romance, say, and they've never read a romance novel, and they give it a go, and it isn't very successful because they don't know what readers like. And because you as a reader are familiar with the genre, that'll help you a lot. I hope that helps you make your decision. I would say if you put the writing to market aside, that you go with your male-female decision on what feels the most comfortable for you and the character that gets you enthusiastic. Okay, you're going to have more fun writing the story that way. Okay, next question. Okay, big problem. I'm halfway through my mystery now, and I don't know what to do next. Any advice? Robert, I'm going to get to your female question in a minute. It sounds as though you didn't outline your story, and that's where people get stuck. I know that it's fun to just start writing the story and sort of explore where the stories go, but especially for beginning writers, you can end up in a situation that you found yourself in right now, where you don't know what to do next. So the first step in this is to do what you've already done, and that's to stop. Just stop and go back to the drawing board and take some time and flesh out your characters and unpack them. Review your characters, some of the things we've talked about today. Your supporting characters, look at ways they can frustrate your detective. You've got a whole half of the second act. If you really are in the middle, you've got a whole half of the second act to really give your detectives some problems and thwart their search for the perpetrator. So go back and look at your characters and think about ways that they can impact your detective. And then I have another question for you. I don't know the answer, so you're going to have to think about this. Do you know the end? Do you know who killed the victim? And so far, in the half that you've written, is every scene moving the story toward the revelation of the murderer. If you've gotten sidetracked because supporting characters, if you don't have a plan, supporting characters can kind of lead you off on a divergent path. So you might want to go back and look at that and look at your story outline. If you don't do a full plotting thing, it helps just to outline from the beginning to the middle where you are, and then all the way through to the end, so you have an idea of where the story's going. And looking at those characters, you can figure out ways to give your detective some trouble. Um, I hope that helps. My advice right now, while you're stuck, is don't write anymore until you're solid with your story premise and how each character complicates the story. Scott Ryers wrote a really helpful piece just today, I think, about breaking your story before you begin writing, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So let's see what Robert says. Female characters are seen as more vulnerable in fiction. This past year, we've seen empowerment of women, but that hasn't transitioned easily to genre fiction. The more vulnerable the protagonist, the more it heightens the tension. That's a really good point, Robert. Yes, the more vulnerable your protagonist, it does heighten the tension. And I like that. And I'm still not sure if that's a good thing. Yeah, so well, I think vulnerability is a good thing in male and female characters, and that goes back to their wound, whatever that may be, um, which gives them those soft spots, those points where they can get wounded more, or where the wound gets in the way. But I think another issue with female lead characters, especially in genre fiction, is that readers who are looking for, as a search criteria, are looking for female lead characters, are looking for a strong female lead. They're really looking for a role model who goes out there and fights the good fight and solves the mystery, and how can I say this? And who corrects people who are wrong. They want a woman who leads, and that's what a protagonist does in any story, is they lead. So yes, they can still have that vulnerability, but I think this was all comes from thinking about writing to market. That people who are looking for female detectives, whether they are amateur or professional, are really looking for a super strong personality who leads with a wound, but the vulnerability is like not in where in say historical novels about women, where they are vulnerable and they overcome in spite of their vulnerability. I'm not sure that's true of what readers are looking for in female mystery detective. I could be wrong. That's just my general sense, that people who are looking for a female a, a female detective want someone who is strong. That's a really good point, though. I think there's a case. Would take a very skilled writer, but I think there is a case for presenting a vulnerable female detective, probably an amateur because the training that's involved in working in any kind of law enforcement is is going to make her not so vulnerable, but certainly as an amateur detective, she could have a lot of vulnerabilities and still be able to solve the mystery through her other skills. I mean, look at the archetype example, Miss Marple. Um, older, she's not physically fit, none of those things that people think of as strong, female detectives. So I think the vulnerability is a really great point. And one of the other things about vulnerability is that people can misread it and not understand the inner strength inside that character. That's a really great point. I want to thank you, Robert. Okay, that's pretty much what we have to today in unpacking your supporting characters. And I want to thank everybody who's here. And please subscribe. We're here every Monday at noon Pacific time. And you can subscribe to get notifications on Facebook. And also, if you can't make it live, I know there's some followers who live in completely different time zones in the Southern Hemisphere. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel as well and get notified when Mystery Monday comes up. So thank you everyone for being here.